What's up, everybody? On today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 10 reasons why Latinos should not move to Alabama. Have you ever heard of the Edmund Putis Bridge? Who was Edmund Putis? Find out who he was in comments. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of homework for this video. This bridge is the famous bridge in Selma, Alabama, where the civil rights movement began. All right, everybody, so 10 reasons why Latinos shouldn't move to Alabama. So I've made this video in Spanish, but I'm gonna make it now in English because on this channel, I've had so many people ask me why shouldn't we move to Alabama. Actually, I got 2 emails today from Latinos telling me they're moving to Alabama, and the number of Latinos moving to Alabama has been increasing greatly. So in today's video, we're gonna elaborate exactly on what are 10 reasons that Latinos should not move to Alabama. The reason this phenomenon is happening is a new wave of Latinos entering the United States from Latin America, and the fact that Alabama has some of the best affordability in the United States. Now on our channel, we have elaborated greatly on why sometimes places that are affordable suck. And there's a reason they're affordable, but when people are coming from other countries, one of their biggest criteria is just simply finding affordability, and that is why the state of Alabama has had an increase of Hispanic population over the last 2 years. Initially, we made this video in Spanish so that the people that were moving to Alabama could understand what they were going to face, but I think we've had so many questions on this channel regarding this topic that I think it's appropriate to make the video in English as well. Number 1 is HB 56. House Bill 56 was an unconstitutional law that the state of Alabama put in place that was elaborately targeting minorities in that state. Some of the things that this law would state are things that would be challenged in the Supreme Court. However, the Supreme Court backed off because Alabama has been known to take their state rights to a level of civil war, and the people of the United States just don't want to deal with that. Therefore, Alabama is pretty much allowed to do whatever it wants because state rights are very important in the United States. Many times these state rights go against federal law, and that's happening throughout the whole country. So it's no surprise that Alabama is also taking full swing at doing whatever the crap it wants, despite the fact it's unconstitutional. To summarize why this law is a problem for Hispanics and really all minorities moving to Alabama, it pretty much states that if anybody suspects that you're an illegal, they have the right to pretty much detain you until you can prove otherwise. The reason it's unconstitutional is because if you are a U.S. citizen, nobody has the right to detain you for any reason, especially based on your race. But again, Alabama doesn't really care about respecting your race or your constitutional rights. Therefore, if you are a U.S. citizen but are not American, anybody in Alabama can pretty much detain you and assume that you're an illegal, and they're 100% protected by this House bill. And also, this House bill allows banks and other government agencies to pretty much scrutinize anybody who's not a U.S. citizen and make them come up with extra documentations. And in many occasions, as you'll see later on in the video, this law is also used to discriminate people and to prevent them from having rights that they're entitled to as U.S. citizens simply because they are not U.S. born citizens, they're naturalized citizens. It's a horrible law and its effect is far-reaching. Regardless, if you are Hispanic and you move to Alabama, this law will eventually be implemented towards you, and it will be one of the most humiliating and disrespectful things that will ever happen to you. And once you do provide proof that you are a U.S. citizen, they're not going to accept it. They're pretty much telling you that you're not going to be able to open a bank account, or you're not going to be able to press police charges, or whatever it is you're trying to do that you're entitled to. Simply put, you're not getting these benefits because you're not one of them. And it's a horrible law, and the way it's implemented is like given up to regular civilians and banks and just regular people, which means you're not really going to have any type of rights. It's basically a law that strips away your rights. It's horrendous, and if you're Hispanic and you move to Alabama, trust me, this law will be put in place for you when you go to the bank, when you go open an account somewhere, when you go to court, when you get pulled over. they will use this law to make you feel like you're nobody and strip away your rights. And again, this law is not targeted at illegals. It's targeted at U.S. citizens who are not born U.S. citizens and have a racial makeup that's not white or black. It's horrendous. Number 2, the vocabulary used by Alabama officials. Even the governor of Alabama has not held back from using vocabulary that clearly denotes hate towards minorities. In her No Way Jose ad campaign, the governor of Alabama openly used vocabulary and made sentiments be felt throughout Alabama that are possibly beyond the generation we're living in, something from the 1960s. The use of vocabulary of this sort was first propagated by George Wallace in Alabama, and even the current governor of Alabama has no problem using vocabulary that hurts the feelings of the Hispanic community and reminds Latinos in Alabama that they are nothing here. If this is the vocabulary used by governors and other high officials of the state of Alabama, what could be expected from police officers and county judges in the vocabulary that they will choose to refer to Hispanics? Another Alabama politician recently was quoted online for going to a Klan rally birthday party. Clearly, in the state of Alabama, politicians cater to the lowest denominator that will guarantee their votes, and that is racism. From the Civil War to George Wallace to today, the vocabulary used by officials in Alabama makes no doubt clear how they feel about minorities. And if you think that doesn't embolden local officials to treat you as a person inhumanely, you're seriously mistaken. Number 3 is you will get ran out. That's the term that they use in Alabama for doing everything they can, from your neighbors to your workmates to people in the community, to make sure that you feel as unwelcomed as possible. And these things include playing music late at night, using arms in a way that's not appropriate, anything they can do to scare or intimidate you to make sure that you get ran out. And believe me, once they are able to ran you out of the neighborhood, they will celebrate greatly, so you will not be welcomed in your community. And the term ran out is a very normal term in Alabama. It means everybody in your neighborhood works in conjunction to make your life as unbearable, miserable, perhaps littering on your property, perhaps making excessive noise, everything they can do to make you feel uncomfortable and unwanted. You will be ran out of Alabama. Number 4 is the unreal level of ignorance that you're going to have to put up with. These people are insensitive, backwards, and they have absolutely no problem voicing their 1986, or should I say 1886 mindset. Uneducated and unsensible to the feelings of other people, the people of Alabama are definitely ignorant, and there's no cure for it. This one here stretches beyond racial lines and affects everybody evenly. Number 5, every Latino is a Mexican. In the state of Alabama, you're no longer a Colombian or a Cuban or a Venezuelan. Every Latino, and in fact, even people from other countries, are just grouped in as Mexicans. So if you're Indian or you're Cuban or you're from another part of the world, perhaps you're Armenian, it doesn't matter. If you're not black, you're not white, you're a Mexican. And even after you clarify to them your specific nationality, they will continue to refer to you as a Mexican. So if you're Hispanic of any kind, be ready to denounce your specific nationality and just be referred to as a Mexican. This is very offensive, and it is done not out of ignorance or not knowing. It is done to purposely degrade you and make you feel like you're worthless. It's very disrespectful, and if you are Latino and you move to Alabama, they don't care what part of Mexico you're from. I had somebody call me a Mexican. I said, "Hey, I'm Cuban," and their reply was, "I don't care what part of Mexico you're from." In Alabama, the people just refer to anybody who's not black or white as Mexican, and it is done to offend you. If you are naive enough to think it's being done out of ignorance, you're going to learn a lot while living in Alabama. But Mario, Luigi, I'm Italiano. No Italiano, you're Mexicano. Number 6 is you have to be armed. The state's laws of Alabama don't just encourage you to be armed, they're set up so you almost have to be armed. Hispanics are not exactly people who like to be armed, while in the United States of America, specifically states like Alabama, being armed is part of their culture. For us Hispanic people, we find that it's unnecessary, and our countries don't have laws where you have to be armed or where you're allowed to be armed, so it's just not part of our culture. Unfortunately, the people of Alabama have laid out their laws to where you almost have to be armed. I had a neighbor who was a convicted felon. He was very heavily armed, and I asked him, why are you armed if you're a convicted felon? He says, in Alabama, you have to be armed, and the laws of the state make it so dangerous to be not armed that even convicted felons take the risk and are armed, not because they want to, but because the state laws almost force you. Many Hispanic people just don't have this custom in their culture, and it's looked as a taboo thing, usually related to delinquency, and it's just our culture. But in Alabama, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to find that you're going to have to be armed. In other states, while you're allowed to be armed if you want to, you can say, I don't want to. But the way the laws are set up in Alabama, you're almost forced to be armed. And if you're not, you're going to make a very easy victim. Like the first week that I moved to Alabama, I had a guy from Honduras that I met, and he insisted that I immediately get armed. He said, I know in your country you're not used to this. It's out of your culture, but you have to do it. You're going to get victimized. And sure enough, the day that I got it, that same day somebody boxed me in and tried to see if I was armed. And it's a very scary place to live, and it's just a really crappy set of laws that most Latinos will probably feel very uncomfortable with. The people of Alabama are just overly obsessed with weapons and arms, and they really feel like it's almost a religious thing for them. But if you're coming from somewhere else, you're going to find this odd, creepy, and it's just going to make you feel uncomfortable. State's going to take your rights. If you're Hispanic in Alabama, the state's already taken away your rights. Number 7 is in Alabama, the police will refuse to take your report if you are Latino or Hispanic. They'll quote HB 56 and they'll tell you, you're an illegal Mexican. We can't use the resources of Alabama to protect illegals. And if anybody tells me that's a lie, I lived it with my own flesh. I went to the police department to make a report, and they say, hey, boy, you're an illegal Mexican, aren't you? Now, the resources of Alabama cannot be used to protect illegal immigrants. I said, but look, I bought a house. Here's my driver's license. Here's my concealed carry permit. Here's my U.S. citizenship paperwork. They said, look here, boy, you're a Mexican. And the state of Alabama cannot use its resources to protect illegals. So if you think you're just going to call the police in Alabama as a Hispanic and they're going to file your police report, they will refuse to do it. I tried to file a police report through 3 or 4 different avenues, and they did not allow me. They told me that you are an illegal Mexican and that the state of Alabama just cannot use its resources to protect illegals. So don't think that you're going to be able to call the law for anything in Alabama. And well, if you saw the governor of Alabama's No Way Jose ad campaign, then you should understand if the governor has no problem being disrespectful and using inappropriate vocabulary, why would law enforcement be any different? I love how when I said that, a lot of people on that video said, oh, we would never do that. Our law enforcement would never do that. Well, your governor's doing it. If your governor's doing it, of course your cops are doing it. I mean, that's just common sense. The governor does it. Why wouldn't everybody else do it? Number 8, criminal bans targeting Latinos. This is another thing that many people in Alabama said was a complete lie. Well, it's not a lie anymore that it's on the news. The Birmingham Police Department found one guy who was wanted for 32 individual charges. The police report details specifically how him and other armed robbers would specifically target Hispanics with complete immunity from the law. They felt they were invincible in targeting Hispanics for robberies. And when those Hispanics went to the law, guess what the law did? Well, you're dang illegal. But sir, look, I have a house, I have a driver's license, here's my U.S. citizenship paperwork. You're an illegal Mexican. Those criminals have all the free reign they want. Well, I was told I was a liar. If you guys look at my previous videos when I talked about my experience in Alabama, they said I was a liar. Am I lying now that you have these entire criminal bands being dismantled? The reason they're being dismantled is because a father of 7, that's right, was ambushed outside his home, and the outcry after losing this man was incredible in Alabama, but it just highlights how brazen these people are. The Birmingham Police Department has made some news clips and videos on the internet explaining exactly what was going on there, but I said it was happening in Alabama. Everybody said I was a liar. Am I lying now that it's pretty much national news that this is happening in Alabama? What they forgot to mention wasn't just that they're targeting Hispanics, but the reason they feel they have so much impunity is because the police doesn't really care to stop them. So if you're Hispanic and you're moving to Alabama, just know that there are specific networks and their entire obligation is to look for people like you to take whatever you have, and when you call a law, there's nothing you could do. And some people have actually reported that the situation got worse after contacting law enforcement. It appears that some law enforcement agencies are actually giving information to criminals on where they can find vulnerable Hispanics. Basically, they're letting their criminals do the dirty work that they wish their government could do for them. Number 9 is workplace environments. Many Latinos in Alabama are having quote-unquote workplace accidents. I was there for about a year, and I couldn't believe how many people I met of a Hispanic background that lost an arm, a leg, or were pretty much perished at a job site. The stories that I've heard were horrendous, and they seem to be very persistent, to the point where I started telling people, hey, you realize that this is not normal for this many people to get hurt on job sites. So if you're Hispanic and you take a job in Alabama at a job site and there's big equipment around or something like that, just know that workplace accidents and car accidents are very common in Alabama, and they're a great cover story to make you disappear. I met one guy in Alabama who was neglectfully pretty much left in a wheelchair. And when I asked him the details about the situation, it seemed very suspicious. And the guy told me, Jose, I had never really talked about this with anyone, but in the back of my mind, I always thought it was done on purpose. And I was like, yeah, it definitely was done on purpose, because I've met other people throughout Alabama who went through the same thing. So just be very careful at your job that anything could happen to you and be labeled as an accident. The state of Alabama in general has alarmingly high rates of car accident losses and workplace accident losses, just ridiculous numbers. And it seems that these are perfect areas to camouflage hurting somebody on purpose. Number 10 is horrible schools. Now, Alabama's internal population is actually having a larger death rate than they are having a birth rate. So if people didn't move to Alabama, their population isn't growing, it's actually shrinking. It means more people are dying than are being born in Alabama. That's not how nature works, but that's how Alabama works. Well, anyways, since Alabama is just internally not growing, most of the growth is external, they just don't care about their schools. I went to a school in Montgomery, Alabama, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Now, we're talking air conditioning units that don't work. Instead of being central air, they're window shakers, no heating system, broken windows, doors that don't latch. The condition of the schools in Alabama is horrendous. They do not fund their schools. Alabama doesn't care about education, to be honest. And the condition of these schools is horrendous. However, the Hispanic community is known to have a lot of kids and to grow their family. So you're going to put your family in a place where it's not really catered for your family. The schools are horrendous, and your kids are going to be subjected to some of the worst education in the entire country. When it comes to education, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana are just kind of at the bottom. And I will tell you that Alabama is not a place you want to put your kids. The schools are very, very bad. You can't even, to understand this, I had a friend, now they had their kids in a different type of school. I can't remember what they call them in Alabama, but it's like a better version of a school. And this isn't rich people. These are just normal people that are actually paying out of pocket to make sure their kids can go to a little bit better of a school. And I talked to the kid about the condition of the school, and even that was bad, but it was nothing compared to the school systems in Alabama. It's a state that just doesn't care about education. To them, education is not really a priority. The Latino population in Alabama has the highest graduation rate of any state. And the reason is because Hispanics just have a better appreciation for education. So the parents are going to make sure that their kids are going to graduate. In the state of Alabama, the school systems, what I found out is kind of like it's rigged up to where people can graduate easier. So like the standards are lower, and by the standards being lower, the graduation rate is actually higher. But if you were to grab students from Alabama and put them in a school in Florida or New York or New Jersey, these students would be outperformed on every level. All right, we're going to finalize the video with a question to the audience. If you're from Alabama, is this true or false? So many people have told me this, and I just can't believe it's true. But people have told me that in the state of Alabama, they don't teach the civil rights movement. The vocabulary that they use is the Northern aggression. I studied social studies, history, U.S. history in Florida, and I never heard the term Northern aggression, but apparently that is the term that they use in Alabama to refer to the Civil War in an academic environment. So if you're from Connecticut or New Hampshire and you hear this term Northern aggression, you might ask yourself, what the crap is that? That's U.S. history in Alabama. Is this true or false? And again, I'm laying this out as a question to the audience from Alabama. Have you ever heard the term Northern aggression? I've never heard this term in Florida. When I moved to Alabama, I started hearing it and I chuckled at it. And then they look at you like, well, I learned that in school. Right, there it is. Those are 10 reasons you should really reconsider moving to Alabama if you are a Latino. And I know I have elaborated a lot on this topic. I can't believe I have to make this video in English, but I get emails in English every single day of people asking me, Jose, I'm Hispanic, I'm moving to Alabama, what do you think? I'm like, have you not seen my YouTube channel? Finally, did you know that Lynyrd Skynyrd is actually from Jacksonville, Florida, and not from Alabama? Interesting. All right, guys, greetings to everybody watching from Alabama and Florida. I hope you guys like this video. And if you live in Alabama and you disagree with anything that I have to say, elaborate thoroughly. If you are Hispanic and you have lived in Alabama or currently live in Alabama, do you disagree with what I'm saying? One of the greatest things that I found to be interesting about my Spanish video that got 300,000 views was how many Hispanics told me how they have not encountered any of these problems in Alabama and how they're living a peaceful life. Then I asked them where they came from, and I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely not as bad as living in, wherever you were living at before. But there's 50 states here, and this really isn't the best one for you. All right, guys, checking out. Let me hear your thoughts and opinions. Clearly, with the tone that government officials in Alabama have set about the way they're going to handle the Hispanic population in Alabama, leaves no doubt that the things that I was saying beforehand are true, but raises the question, if this state is really so openly hostile towards Hispanics, why do they keep going there? I think affordability is a huge concern for the Hispanic community, and really lack of options within the realm of affordability. There are states like along the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas where it's super affordable, but the state of Texas is actually pretty strict on their border policies and their border presence, which means it's very difficult for illegals to set up shop in a place like southern Texas, where despite the fact it's Hispanic, it's clearly not a connotation of race or discrimination. It's simply there's a lot of law enforcement presence, and they're not going to tolerate illegals living there. Interestingly, Alabama just can't take the same stance. Interestingly, the governor of Alabama tried to send troops to Texas. Texas doesn't have an illegal problem. I think only like 20% or less of Texas Latino population is illegal, where now in the state of Alabama, over 50% of the Hispanic population is illegal. And I think Alabama has one of the largest percentages of illegal population of Hispanics by percentage of any state in the country. And it's probably attributed to the fact that it's a poor agricultural rural place. And that's really the only opportunities that they're giving Hispanics. Like, for example, California gives Hispanics a lot of opportunities. Texas gives Hispanics a lot of opportunities. Florida, New York, these are states that the Hispanics are realtors, they're lawyers, they're senators. I mean, the roof is the limit, really, when it comes to being a Hispanic in a state like New York or Florida. But in a state like Alabama, those big opportunities are not granted to Latinos, which means that proportionately they are left with a larger percentage of illegals by population percentage. And that's not the case for every single state, but it's just interesting how Alabama, with its affordability and its very strict, straightforward laws against minorities, seems to be where these people end up. All right, there it is. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this subject. I recently had a reply video by a realtor to one of my videos, borderline crossing the line of fair use and stepping into copyright infringement because of how much of my content they used. I'm actually going to allow it for some reason. Normally I don't. I think they were respectful in how they handled their presentation, but at the same time, I want you guys to know that if they're going to get upset about this, then just all the more reason for me to make more of these videos. I mean, I was going to step off the Alabama content for a while, but if they're making reply videos to one of my videos, then it's time for me to bring out the videos of people attacking each other with squirrels and stuff. Because I do have stuff from Alabama. Like, I really haven't gone. I mean, I've tackled this from a very outside. Like, I haven't really elaborated on a lot of the details. I haven't really been specific about some of the things that I went through in Alabama. Haven't really uploaded videos of some of the things that I saw in Alabama that I, recorded little clips, and I still have them. Like somebody, fighting over a squirrel. Like, I actually saw that in Alabama. Like, I have some really embarrassing stuff. I should just go on some embarrassing Alabama stories. But I don't do that because I'm not trying to make fun of the people of Alabama. But if they're going to start making reply videos, we could take it to that level. I hope you guys liked the video. And yes, there's definitely a lot of people in Alabama taking notice of what we're doing. Ironically, none of them even remotely try to take or understand my side of the argument. They're all taking a very specific stance on this matter. And it's crazy how nobody from Alabama, not even a single person, has came out to say, we have to fix some of these things, or he's right. All they say is you're lying, you're wrong, you're misleading. Not a single person in Alabama has came out to say, not even Latinos. I mean, if you look at these comments, it seems like they're all in denial or afraid to speak on this subject. Interestingly, they don't target the real topics. They take a stance on my personality or my charisma or, any of my personal little antics, but they're not really tackling the subject at hand. They're not really talking openly about HB 56 or any of the other real concerns that are regarding the Latino community in Alabama. It's all a little game for them, and it's always from the same angle. But I would really love to see people in Alabama really take on these subjects. Radio stations don't talk about it. They're not talking about it within any type of honest perspective, like what I'm doing right now. Like, I've had a subscriber on my channel who's been following me for years out of Alabama. I've helped him with his YouTube channel. I've gone to his channel and supported him. Like, he's always on my videos commenting, but I see him on another video from another creator and he's bad mouthing me. And I'm like, so when you come to my channel, you come at me like we're buddy, but then when you go to another creator's channel, you're talking bad about me. And that was very hurtful because it seems like in Alabama, having two faces is part of the way people are there. And I'm not with that. Like, I'm being very straightforward. I'm from South Florida, so I'm very straightforward about the way I see things. But to see somebody, come on my channel and act like they're buddy with me, but then they go to somebody else's channel and talk bad about me, is very hurtful to me. And I told this person, dude, I don't ever want to see you on my channel. Don't ever come here and comment again. Like, how are you going to pretend like you're buddy with me, but then go behind my back and talk bad about me? And it just seems like Alabama is really struggling to come at this topic straight on and have a conversation. Like, it's always some indirect or, a passive aggressive thing. But, either speak your mind or don't do it at all, because, I don't really see how even the Hispanics in Alabama are afraid to touch these subjects.